Greetings. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. More contemplations on the 32nd path of the Tree of Life, symbolized by the World card, alternatively called the Universe. A lot of strange things to be found here, because in this place, we find that reality presents itself differently than it does in the world of Asaya, the world of Malkuth, the world of the five senses. So what is this all about? Cosmic doctrine, mystical Kabbalah? What is any of this all about? Well, in truth, what we're talking about here is an attempt at understanding the extremely abstract nature of what we call consciousness or God, or the highest thing that you can conceive of. How do we come to understand something that we don't have words for? So this is where we get a certain science like Kabbalah. This is what magic is, essentially. It isn't so much hocus pocus, hexing and cursing and love spells and all that stuff. That's what they call low magic. Now, low magic happens in contrast with high magic, and it's nothing to do with morality. It's nothing to do with good versus evil. It's nothing to do with what you think or feel. Low magic involves a mindset that is focused on the terrestrial five sense experience. Magic dealing with the world of Asaya. Now, high magic is the magic that's reaching upward, back up the tree, heading away from matter and towards consciousness. So what that means is that high magic is a discipline of coming into an understanding and a realization of what the soul is, of what God is, of what the nature of the universe is all about. So when we talk about the Tree of Life and these abstract principles, what we're actually trying to do is to map and chart the unknown. I've been saying for a while now that Kabbalah is the map, yoga is the vehicle. Well, that's very true in every sense of the metaphor. Because in truth, Kabbalah and the Tree of Life isn't really a thing. This isn't really a thing. That diagram of 10 circles and 32 lines, this isn't really anything. It's just a diagram, it's a map. But as we learn in NLP, the map is not the territory, right? The map is not the territory. The map is just that, a map. The territory must be explored by the individual. So an important thing to consider when dealing with Kabbalah is that what we're talking about is the individual's experience with this abstract data. And when I say abstract data, I'm talking about the types of things that are to be understood in the furthest reaches of existence. Now, these things that exist in the furthest reaches of existence, there's not words for. So in order for us to grasp those concepts, we work with metaphor. We work with images, symbols, signs. And these signs and symbols serve as a type of intellectual technology that allow us to reach out and grasp the unattainable. Now, we're all products of Western civilization, American culture. So of course we want to see the spooky things. We want to see the hocus pocus. That's what we want. It makes sense. But the thing is, even those spooky things don't exist. Those are just figments of somebody's imagination in Hollywood. When we talk about the Qlippoth, we talk about this scary, dangerous place. I mentioned before, a few minutes ago, that the key piece of the puzzle here is that all of this is taking place in the individual's perspective. You, right? You are the crux of this whole thing. Without you, none of this is really anything but just a collection of information. It takes you to be able to see the patterns, and you relate yourself to the patterns. So what happens is that the Qlippoth and the light side tree exist simultaneously. The difference is you. The difference is you. See, when entering upon the 32nd path, which is the first step on the tree, not only are you ascending to the light, but you're also descending into the darkness. Since the tree is navigated by the individual, we have this ability to be able to see in polarity. We are able to see the positive and the negative at the same time. In truth, that's actually the engine of our vehicle, being able to choose between the positive and the negative. And depending on what we choose, or the lack of choice, depends on what direction we go. I don't know if you guys remember, but there used to be these books when I was a kid. And these were the Choose Your Own Destiny books. And basically, you wouldn't just read it from beginning to end. You'd read the book, and depending on what choice you make, would tell you what page to turn to. So if I decided to eat the apple or to eat the banana, I'd go to page 36 or page 54. And the different choices that I would make would send me to a different story. So there are possibilities that I would never end up reading. Likewise, when it comes to this tree, when it comes to path working, and when it comes to your life, what fuels you in the human incarnation and beyond is the ability to navigate between polarity. So on this tree, we've got 3 poles. We got the positive and the negative pillar. And then we've got the middle path, which is the harmony and the balance of both. And that is something that has to be mastered if one expects to transcend this tree. You don't transcend this tree on polarity, on being polarized, right? You transcend this tree by being harmonized. What's the difference between polarized and harmonized? Polarized means you're all the way one thing or all the way the other thing. Harmonized means that there's a synthesis and an integration between both extremes. Take a look at that card right there. The High Priestess. She sits in between both poles, the positive and the negative. But she sits there in the middle, balanced. She has mastery over them. To be polarized means that you're either going to be stagnant or you're going to be busy, preoccupied or stagnant. So when embarking upon the paths, especially this 32nd path, you're going to be faced with the real opportunity to actually transcend and cross that path or to get lost. Now, being lost is what we would call the Qlippoth, because this 32nd path represents an abyss. See, what they don't tell you in these books is that there are multiple abysses. The abyss of Doth is just the final one, but there is an abyss in between Malkuth and Yesod as well. And what happens is that the gap or the gulf between, say, being awake and falling asleep, the gulf in between being awake and actually being into meditation or into trance, that in-between state that we can't quite track as we cross over, That's the 30-second path. So when you lay down, going to bed, and you're having your thoughts race through your head, and suddenly you realize you're in a dream, before that dream initiated, and sometimes after your thoughts stopped, you transitioned into the 30-second path. Nobody can track or map that transition. It happens in a strange way. We're suddenly shifted into another state of existence. This is what's going to happen when you die. This is what happened when you were born. This is what happens every single day of your life. You transition from one state to another, and we don't keep track of how it happened, where it happened. That experience is the 30-second path. And the 30-second path is often symbolized by descending into a very deep and dark cavern. And oftentimes within this deep, dark cavern, you'll encounter things that can be considered poisonous, like serpents with venom, or terrible spiders, or even wraiths and ghosts and vampires, right? Fanged creatures that inject venom. Now on the 30-second path, there are multiple tunnels leading to various places. Some of those places will take you into the beauty and the wonder of the rest of the tree, and some of those places will lead to dead ends. Strange dead ends. Dead ends where you sometimes forget how you got there. And the result of being in those types of dead ends is that you become a husk or a shell of whatever you were when you first entered. The Qlippoth is you. See, you make the content of the tree. You fill in the content of the tree. There's nothing there until you get there. When I say that this tree of life is a map, it's a map that's being made as you step. On Fortnite, when you jump out of the plane, you got these little parachutes, and they can be all kinds of parachutes. Of course, mine's a crystal unicorn. But I've seen one person floating down on a train, and as that train went through the sky, the tracks were literally being created in front of it as it floated down. That's your work on this tree. It's literally being created as you move across it. So the millions of people, maybe hundreds of thousands, but we'll say millions because this science has actually been around for a long time. The millions of people who set out on this journey have been able to report patterns that have persisted no matter who did it and when they did it. And one of those patterns is the entry into the cave. And if you don't have the proper equipment to navigate the depths of that cave, you will get lost. And you'll more than likely run into something that lives in those caves and feeds on people who get lost. Things that get lost. So, like I said, the 30-second path represents the depth, the womb. It's re-entry into the womb. You're going back into the womb to actually be unborn. The whole point of this thing, the whole point of the symbolism here, that 30-second path represents going back into the womb to be unborn. So you came through a womb to be born, you're symbolically going back. Now keep in mind, none of this is literal. You're not going back into a vagina. It's symbolic. The womb is the matrix. The matrix is the platform for existence. There would be no existence if it weren't for a matrix for the existence to exist in, right? So it's not necessarily a specific thing. We're talking about a context. So the first ability and power that must be mastered before even starting this whole thing is discrimination. Because without the light of discrimination, you're not going to be able to navigate. Now, I myself typically walk the middle path. So I'm going to take a little bit from all sides. And the 30-second path in dealing with the Qlippoth is represented by a guardian who's called I'll tell you a secret. If you look into a book like Godwin's Kabbalistic Encyclopedia, and you go to the T, and you look up Thantiphaxid, you'll see that he represents the 32nd path, and you'll see that he also represents a specific type of disease. You'll also see that he is represented by a certain musical note and various other symbols. Now, these things aren't arbitrary, they actually have meaning. When you're doing your mantra and you're chanting the mantra of Thantiphax, of the 32nd path, if it's related to, let's say, the note B, you'd probably want to chant the mantra in the tone of B. If anybody's at that level, most likely not. But just in case, this video will be on the internet for a long time. If you see a certain note associated with one of the paths, that probably means that's the tone you should chant when working on the path. It'll help to unlock some things. In any case, when dealing with this guardian, many travelers have encountered an experience of fanged creatures. And what these things have in common, because you have to read the metaphor, you have to look in between the lines. These fanged creatures have venom, and when they bite you, they inject their venom into you. So when entering in this cave, you're not supposed to avoid the spiders, and you're not supposed to run from the snakes. You can't. They're everywhere. As a matter of fact, you're supposed to let them bite you. You're supposed to welcome and allow the venom to enter into your bloodstream, to contaminate your body. Now, what happens when you begin to have venom injected into your veins? What does it do to you? Someone in the chat, tell me. What effect does it have? I'm going to read the comments while you guys answer that. Good morning and greetings to everyone. I'm kind of digging this early afternoon sessions here. It's different. But I've been up all night doing path working, so this stuff is fresh on my mind and fresh on my soul. Sunshine Chick, peace. Society Ejects, peace. OA, peace. Young Shiva, peace. MC Maestro, peace, peace. Alligator, peace. As I said, hit the like button. I mean, come on. If you like the content, then like the content. I don't get anything in the mail for likes, but because YouTube is a computer program, it runs off of data. And one of the pieces of data that categorizes these videos is the number of engagement actions taken. And one of those engagement actions that are counted are likes. So hit the like button. Stuffed Dog, peace, peace. Veronica, peace. Al Dickey, peace. Okay, so I got some answers. AAA says immunity. You're on the right track. Very good. You were built for this occult path, my friend. Veronica Archaga says you become them. Yes, ma'am. In a way, but particularly. Anna Molly says if it's a low enough dose, it would possibly build immunity or kill you. Well, just to cut to the chase here, Jacob Wayne Styles, peace. When you have that venom injected into you, it begins to alter your mind. It alters your body, but the body is an extension of the mind. And the premise of what's happening in these caves in the 32nd path is that when these creatures inject you with their venom, it begins to change your consciousness. You begin to vibrate differently. And just like what Veronica said in the chat, you become one of them. You see, these different states of existence are separated by vibration. Science tells you that the only reason we're able to see and touch things are because they're vibrating at such a slow rate that our five senses can pick them up. So what that means is that there are infinite amounts and rates of vibration, meaning that there are infinite experiences that can possibly be experienced. So when crossing the abyss of being awake to going into sleep, or being awake and going into meditation, When you cross that abyss, you've altered your vibration. Your brain waves change, don't they? You go from beta to alpha or more. And the symbolism of being bitten by these creatures and injected with their venom and their poison represents that you have to take a dose of what they're made of so that you can vibrate at their level. Everything on this tree is about vibration. Like I mentioned before, if one of the paths are symbolized by a specific musical note, then when you play that note, you're tapping in just a little bit closer to what that path is all about. Likewise, when you do your mantras, these are things that are dealing with frequency and vibration. So taking the venom symbolizes your vibration beginning to change so that you can perceive what's happening here. Now, this cave is dark. There is no light. There's no sunlight. There's no sunlight. So you're going to have to change. The snakes can see. The spiders can see. But they're not using the same kind of eyes as you. They're using something different. So the vampire bites you and you become a vampire. Or whatever you encounter in these caves. Whatever dark creature that you encounter that you usually run from, you submit to it. You give up this illusion of protection and preservation. Because for an occultist, there is no death. We don't die. We don't die. There is no death for an occultist. We don't believe in an afterlife. We only believe in life. I don't die when this body stops. I didn't come to life when this body began. It's just one passing of phase to the next. So one of the triumphs of the 32nd path is that you start to lose the fear of death, because you realize that death is an illusion, because birth is an illusion. You were never born, and you will not die. Now, if you think you're the body, eventually you'll come to a realization. And it may take many, 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 many bodies for you to realize that you're none of those bodies. But here's the thing. If you just cannot shake the notion that you are one of these bodies, you found yourself in the Qlippoth, because you're identifying with the shell, with the husk, with that which is ultimately useless, discarded. Now, on the 32nd path, identifying the Qlippoth is easy. But the challenge increases the higher up you go. It becomes more and more difficult to separate the wheat from the chaff. Every path on this tree is subjective. It's a subjective experience. What that means is, when you're working on these paths, you begin to experience correspondence in your daily life according with the paths. So the further up you go, you're going to start getting experiences in your life that line up with these paths. Now, there is once the path has been mastered, then you move to the next. If it hasn't been mastered, that's your limit. That's as far as you can go. And you're welcome to bounce around and check for other clues, but each path has to be unlocked. But ultimately, the lesson is the same. Who are you? Because the first challenge that we were given when stepping onto this path is know thyself. So the question is, who are you? Know thyself. Well, who am I knowing? Each path will test you. And the system checks and balances itself. So if you try to pass one of the paths without actually learning the lesson, you're going to take erroneous knowledge to the next thing that you're trying to do. It all builds upon itself. That's why Yesod is called the foundation. And Yesod is one end of the pole of the 32nd path, while Malkuth is the other end of the pole of the 32nd path. The kingdom and the foundation have to come into alignment, harmony. the kingdom and the foundation of reality. Your kingdom must be in alignment and vibrate with the foundation of reality before you go on to the rest of this tree. Do you get what I'm saying? They chose these words for a reason. And all the time people are like, well, Trev, well, I don't like the way that this sounds, so I'm going to change it up and see what it does. Who are you to change it? You don't even know what it means. Work with it, and then when you understand why it was named that or called that, then see if you want to change it. But how does that sound? Jumping into some science that you barely know about, talking about I'm about to change it because I am all things. I am God, etc., etc. Stop that. This is 2022. Kingdom and foundation must be in alignment before you can proceed. Now I want you to take into consideration all the symbols that we gathered. Ladder of Lights taught something very important, and it taught about how there are archangels that represent the realm of Bria. The four worlds are to be taken into consideration as well. Specifically, what I mean for the 32nd path is that the archangel of Yesod is Gabriel. And what does Gabriel do? He collects all that life, force, and essence and compresses it, gives it a physical body, and shoots it out of a penis into a vagina so that it can start to physically form. The archangel of Malkuth is Sandalphon. And the archangel Sandalphon is the great connector, right? He takes the lowest of all beings and connects it to the Most High. Because remember, Sandalphon represents basically the feet, and Metatron represents the head, showing us that there is a massive algorithm that we can't even comprehend. We can barely comprehend its feet. But the archangel Sandalphon is that which connects us to the Most High. So we've got this friend, we've got this partner, we've got this teacher, and in this particular path, this teacher's connecting us with the archangel who puts spirit into form for physical manifestation. So going back up the tree, we have to reverse the process, and we're going back into the womb. We're going back to the one who gives bodies. And you're probably going to start to understand why and how things incarnate the way they do. It's another one of the lessons of the 32nd path. Hence why it's called the world. You start learning the mysteries of why and how these energies are directed into their specific forms. Notice the four angels of the four corners. Those represent the four elements. And like we said on yesterday's reading, she's got those two wands and she's directing the energy. She's mastered form. And her dance, her cosmic spiral, represents all of her influence, all the way up from Chokmah. Because remember, Chokmah, the mundane chakra of Chokmah, is represented by the zodiac. So she's dancing in spirals according to the zodiac. And she's mastered the four elements. And there she is in the center of this cosmic womb where everything comes out of. What we're looking at is from the perspective of Malkuth looking up to Yesod. And it appears to be this, maybe a woman, might be an androgynous being. We don't know because the goodies are covered up. But this is the Empress. And it is this energy that is directing the life force into physical manifestation. So we're looking upwards. We see the womb of Yesod behind her. That's what that is. As you can see here on this book as well, you got something very similar. You see the oval shape? Anytime you see that shape, that represents the womb, the yoni. You see at the very top, where the sweet spot would be, you see those two colors, Chokmah and Binah, in harmony, unison. There's a lot of clues on this cover because it is through Yesod that we see the whole thing. And all of it is hung up on the cross of Tau. Remember we learned about Tau, which is the Hebrew letter for the 32nd path. That's the cross. The 32nd path is extremely important. It isn't just another step. It's one of the most important steps because this is the step that actually connects all of divinity to your literal meat bag. None of the other paths put so much pressure on incarnated existence. So this is the first abyss that you have to cross. And it's intermingled with the Qlippoth. It's not like the Qlippoth is over here and the rest of the tree is over here. No, on this path, the Qlippoth and the tree they are indistinguishable. So unless you've developed discernment, you won't know. You won't know. You'll be floating in the astral plane, going along with whatever the hell you saw on TV, because you won't know any better. Without the key of discernment that should have been mastered in Malkuth, your journey to the astral plane is you basically making yourself at home in the Qlippoth. Because it's only a matter of time that you're going to stumble across something that's going to slowly drain you of your life essence. Like those vampires and snakes and spiders that are found upon that realm of the path. The experience of Qlippoth is one who is filled with it's almost like an addiction. Whatever was there will be replaced by the force that is filling, and what will be left is a shell, an empty husk. It's not something cool to be edgy and post on the internet about. Like, it's not like that. I know a lot of people think that's what it's like, but that's not what it's like. It's literally the result of playing with something that you have no business playing with. I mentioned before, the first taste of Doth is experienced on the 32nd path. And it can be symbolized, well, at least my experience was, having an infinite lifespan, right? You're eternal. And your job is to go find that diamond. Oh, and by the way, it's somewhere out there in the midst of that asteroid belt. So there you are, eternal and deathless, and you have to find a diamond, yet you are in an asteroid field. Rocks in every single direction, with no rhyme or reason. That's an experience of Doth in the 32nd path. Now, most people don't have what it takes to complete that mission, so they would eventually give up. So how does an eternal being give up? You're not dying. It becomes a shell. It loses its will. Empty. Void. No purpose. It's like being buried alive. Strange topic today, I know, but that's where we're at with it. That's where we're at with it. MC Maestro says, stuck in the Qlippoth is the default state of humanity. Absolutely. Absolutely. And with that being said, another part of the 32nd path is coming into a realization that you are utterly alone. Utterly alone from your fellow man and also from God. And just like an eternal being who's tasked with finding a diamond in an asteroid belt, you got two choices. Either you just give up or you keep going until you find it. So in this experience of feeling utterly alone from your fellow man and even from God, either you give up and become a shell, or you keep going until you find what the hell you set out for. Does that make sense? What I love is that I have my experience, and then I find it reflected in my studies. Not the other way around. I didn't read about this and then go daydream about it. I did it, and then I kept finding that a lot of this information that I've had on my bookshelves is talking about the same thing. Isn't that cool? I saw some pretty interesting things, and it's enough to get me inspired to keep going, because I definitely stumbled upon something. The lesson there is an understanding that time does not matter. Eternity is what exists. We get so caught up and confused about time, and we forget that what matters is the aspect of us that is eternal. If you never give up, then eventually you will find that diamond, right? If that's your mindset, what you'll start to learn as an eternal being is that time is not a thing. It either is or it is not. And that's a bit difficult to grasp if you're only used to existing within time. But one of the lessons of this aspect of the tree is that time is an illusion. If you're gonna do it, you've done it. If you're never gonna do it, you've never done it. It's either or. And like I said before, like I'm explaining different angles of the same thing that I said already. The tree is just a collection of context, patterns. But you are what makes the difference. You are what makes the tree works. You fill it in with content as you go. And ultimately what decides what happens is if you choose this way or that way. You choose this way or that way. Or you learn how to stay balanced in between this way or that way. That's the real goal, is to learn how to stay balanced. But until you get the balance, you're going to have to bounce back and forth between positive and negative. Okay, so I hope you learned something from this. If you didn't, then I hope that this was an entertaining dialogue for you. Death isn't real. Time isn't real. You got to really look in the mirror and face all the things that are connected to ego. What are all the things that are connected to self-preservation? When you think about time, oh, I gotta do this before it's too late. Time's running out. That's not a reality. That's a fear based on an illusion. You're literally going to do what you're supposed to do. Nothing more, nothing less. You can't not do what you're meant to do. So the fear of not doing everything in the right amount of time, that's a baseless fear. Like I said already before, death doesn't exist. It's just a transition of states. If you really think about it, you die every day, multiple times a day, or at least some aspect of you does. Every couple of years. You're not the same person you used to be 3 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So death is not a reality. Change is a reality. And you'll notice all across these cards, even, the death card doesn't mean, oh, end of the story. No, it means transformation. It means change. Right? It means transformation and change. And that transformation and change comes for everybody because it's a natural part of this existence. Prakriti, the three gunas. It's inevitable. You see, trampling on popes, kings, kids, women, even kingdoms. Transformation. So it's not death as in end of the story, death as in what's next. So if you do happen to find yourself brave enough to begin pathworking, understand that you've got to start to dissolve the human fears in order to continue. So you can't take human preservation up the tree because you don't have a human body up there, in there. It's just your consciousness. But if you're taking this illusion of a human body, you're going to start acting like a human in the world of gods. And what do you think happens to a human in the world of gods? You get played with. I believe that you not only understand what I'm saying, but that you'll also put it into practice, and you'll begin to see extraordinary transformation for yourself. I believe that you're going to save time, you're going to avoid suffering, and you're going to experience what you set out to experience, and also even more. I believe that. I believe that every one of you will make it across the barrier. I can only hope that it's painless. Life is good. You don't have to suffer. And that also means that the people around you don't have to suffer. Now, they might choose to, and you might choose to. But if you can help it, don't add to it. I know people have done you wrong, or at least you feel like people have done you wrong. And in your heart, you're saying, oh, they deserve to suffer. And you've probably been holding that in your mental library for years. There's probably people in your life who have offended you, big and small. And inside your heart, you said, you know what? They should suffer. They should suffer. And you're probably holding on to that. I get it. I was too. But ask yourself why. Why should they suffer? And I'm not trying to be moral. Really break this thing down and unpack it, because you'll start to see how pointless that kind of thinking is. So if I ask myself, why should so-and-so suffer? It's because, well, they need to learn their lesson. Okay, fair enough. So the people that you believe should suffer, right? The people who hurt you, maybe it was one of your parents, and the bully from the 9th grade, and the girl that broke your heart, and you never forgave her, all this other stuff. Like I said, I'm not trying to be moral. I made a list today of all the people that all these years I've been carrying around saying, oh, they should suffer, right? You just gotta be honest with yourself. And ask myself, why should they suffer? Oh, because they need to learn their lesson. But then I started to think, okay, so let's fast forward in time, because time doesn't exist. Let's say that they did learn their lesson at some point, whether it was this month, next year, 10 years from now. Let's say that they actually learned their lesson. Then what? Do I recall my suffering judgment that I put on them? Is it good now? Are we cool now? Or do I want them to suffer even more? And if you want them to suffer even more, what's the real point? What's the real story that you're actually getting at? Answer these questions, and don't just vomit an answer up. Really think about this stuff, because this is shit you've been carrying all your life. And if it's not dealt with, you're going to keep carrying it. And if you're going to keep carrying it, it's going to shape your decisions and your behavior in the future. So if you don't deal with resentment, it is in your unconscious mind controlling your behavior. So if you fast forward in the future and they actually learn, say in your mind, they actually learn their lesson, are you able to withdraw that now and say, okay, good to go, everything's cool, I can stop thinking about them and move on. I can move on. Because you're gonna require all of your attention if you're gonna be doing this work. You're gonna require all of your attention, right? Because let me tell you something. When you go into this place and you don't have your body anymore, what's gonna come up are the images and the feelings that are underneath that thin layer of civilization, that frail, fragile mask of civilization that you wear. When you go to work, and the people you want to impress, oh, how's it going? Everything's good. But if something were to trigger one of these things, bam, and all of a sudden you're put into an emotional state. So when you start to go into these places, those things that you've been hiding are going to come up. I suggest you deal with them now. I suggest you deal with them now, so that when you go to these places, they don't pop up and take monstrous forms, trying to inject their venom into you. Guess what those demons are? Those demons are all the things that you haven't dealt with. You are the Qlippoth. It's not an extra thing. It's not an external thing. You are the demons. You are the Qlippoth. You're the hell. You're the they. You're the Illuminati. You're the villain. Whatever demon, bad guy, antagonist you have in your reality, you've created it. It's you. Do you get what I'm saying here? Do you get what I'm saying here? There's not like a separate group of enemies out there to get you. When you die, you don't go to a separate hell with separate demons. No. You feel the content of this universe. That's what makes you God. You can't experience anything that you cannot experience. You literally have to build the language of experience to experience new things. YRSBK asks twice, can you work with demons without selling your soul? Who said you have to sell your soul to work with demons? Like, where do you get that from? Who told you had to do that in the first place? That's number one question. Number two question is, what is your soul? Number three question is, how do you sell it? Number four, who are you selling it to? Ask these questions instead of that question. I don't know how to sell my soul. How do you even do that? Like, if I want to sell something, then like I go online, like say eBay or Amazon, I make a listing for it, I put a price on it, you know what I'm saying? Like I set the parameters, and if somebody buys it, I get the money and they get the thing. But if we talk about selling your soul, like what does that mean? What are you selling? Like, ask those questions. Like, I'm not trying to be a smartass. Like, ask those questions. And if you're not getting answers and they're not adding up, then chances are that is a belief that is not founded in any type of practical reality. It's not efficient. It's not effective. It's not realistic. Like, there's not a soul market. That's probably something that some Christian dogmatist came up with, or some movie producer, because like it makes some kind of sense. But that's not how things work. There's no selling souls. Answer that first question. What is a soul? If you can answer that question, then we can talk about that. But what is a soul? You tell me what a soul is, and then we can talk about selling it. And then he'll get to demons. What are demons? Define that. Break that down. When you start breaking down these words, you start to get to the real truth of the matter, which is, maybe I should start researching in a different direction, because this direction ain't really going anywhere. And how can you sell something that isn't yours? Can you sell something that isn't yours? Society Eject says, how can you sell something that's not tangible? Perfect. You see, like now, see how like everyone has these questions or these statements? Because like, you get what I'm talking about here. And when you start thinking in this manner, you won't get caught up in what I'm talking about, which is this Qlippoth. So check that out. That's a perfect example. See, somebody like that, or someone with those type of questions, you could find yourself going into this astral plane, and then you'll encounter a vision, right, or some kind of experience where it's like, oh, sell your soul to me, I'm a demon. Then you'll be faced with, do I do it or do I not do it, right? Now say you do it, now you're thinking, oh, I sold my soul, so I'm this kind of person, and you're gonna start behaving that way over time. Or you can say, oh, I didn't do it, now I gotta protect myself from these demons, and I gotta do the basically, because you're on that foundation. You saw it as the foundation. If you're on that foundation of selling souls and demons, everything you do after that is going to be skewed and faulty. But if you deal with the original concept, which is demon is just a word. It's just a word. It's just a word. It's not a thing. Soul cannot be sold. It's not even mine. It's not yours. Matter of fact, it's not even here. Soul is not in the material plane. So once you start having those things like sorted out, you won't even go down that path. I mentioned that the astral plane is full of different tunnels, and many of them lead to the Qlippoth. That's one of the tunnels that leads to the Qlippoth. If you go down that path of a belief of selling souls to demons, you're headed to the Qlippoth. You're going to become a shell. You're going to be one of these people out here making these silly YouTube videos with no substance, putting out fear, trying to scare people just to get views. That's called Qlippoth. That's a shell. There's no life there. As a matter of fact, a Qlippoth is a lot like a vampire, not the cool kind of vampire. Since it has no life force, it attracts ignorant life forms so that it can drain them of their life force. A living leech. So the astral plane is filled with so many different countless ideas, different paths, different tunnels that you can go down. But if you lack discernment, you will very easily fall into one of those tunnels that lead to the Qlippoth. That's what Dion Fortune was talking about. That's what Dolores Ashcroft Nowicki was talking about. That's what Robert Wang was talking about. That's what Gareth Knight was talking about. The 32nd path is filled with different tunnels. Many of them lead to the Qlippoth. Which ones lead to the Qlippoth? Well, the ones that you didn't have the discernment to avoid. That's why I also said the 32nd path is the first path for everyone and the last path for most people, because most people don't make it. Now look at this now. The 32nd path is symbolized by the world, which is also the womb. The womb. And you're going to represent the sperm cell being injected into that womb with all the other 6 million sperm cells. Now, how many of those sperm cells make it to the egg? One. So the 32nd path is the first path that everyone steps out onto, every occultist, but it's also the last path that most people step onto. hope this makes sense. I really do. And like I said, if it doesn't, then stick with it. It'll make sense eventually. Food Abroad says the Qlippoth still seems scary to me. Well, just like I asked the other young man, what is the Qlippoth? What is scary about it specifically? What specifically scares you about it? And maybe that's a sign of you having a certain level of respect for what you're dealing with. What's up with that? Okie doke. Food Abroad says, I think of the Qlippoth as the dark spirits of the Kabbalah, and I worry about starting the process and upending my life, maybe. And what's wrong with upending your life? Like I mentioned before, we've all got this very thin, frail mask of sanity and civilization. It's not real. And if you're afraid that an idea or a concept will totally upset the balance of your frail reality, then maybe the thing to address isn't the Qlippoth, but that fragile reality that can be turned upside down. You see what I'm saying? That's a sign that you're already in the Qlippoth. The emotional content should be removed. There's no reason to really be afraid. If you look and see that there's work that needs to be done, either you're going to do the work or you're not going to do the work. But there's not really any room for emotional content like fear, because fear isn't going to change any of it. You're going to have to do something about it, or you're going to leave it the way it is. What's the worst that can happen? You tell me what's the worst that can happen. Food Abroad says, have you been through the Qlippoth, Trav? Man, what kind of charlatan would I be if I'm sitting up here talking about some shit that I don't know anything about? To answer your question, yes. I started working with the Qlippoth in like 2015, I want to say. And it did exactly that, upended my life. I lost everything that I thought was important. And it was the most pivotal point in my magical career, because that thin frail of sanity and civilization that I talked about was ripped apart. And I realized the stuff that I thought was important wasn't important at all. As a matter of fact, they were given to me. I was told that it was important to do those things. Start a family, have a good job, buy a car, get a house, all those things. Those were given to me as important, but I never was invested into any of that. Didn't make me happy. I was trying to impress my parents and the standard of what the world and society would think. All that stuff fell apart because I lost it all in a very short amount of time. And it hurt, but it was good because I free. I'd probably still be paying on a brand new car right now. So let it fall apart. Here's the thing. What is sturdy doesn't fall apart no matter how hard it's shaken. Right? If such an experience... See, here's why I can work with the Qlippoth now. Because there's nothing in my life that's fragile and loose that can fall apart with a little bit of shaking. You feel me? See, back then, my life was fragile, held together by pins and duct tape. Scotch tape. So when I started working with some power, it all got ripped apart. Peace, Anna Molly. Enjoy your new home. But see, now that my reality is built on a solid foundation, which means that it's not built on no physical shit. It's all in here. It's all in here. Words aren't gonna break my heart, make me upset, throw me off my focus. I choose how my day is gonna be. I choose how my life is gonna be. So you've got to have a foundation solid like that if you're gonna talk about working with stuff like the Qlippoth. But if you're afraid that, you know, it's gonna upend your life, then like I said, that's a sign that maybe Does that make sense, y'all? Does that make sense? Like, a lot of people are scared to work with the Qlippoth because it'll shake your life up. But the thing is, if your life is sturdy, or I should say if your mind is sturdy, then the shaking won't have an effect on you. Then you can safely work with it. Does that make sense, y'all? That's why I keep saying, like, the foundation's got to be right. This 30-second path, connecting the foundation to the kingdom, it's got to be right. If this ain't right, the rest of it is built on sand. Soft sand. Food Abroad says, yes, I resonate with what you said. Solid foundations. That lesson has been reiterated for me over and over recently. For the Qlippoth, is the book on your table what we should use to start? No. No. I'm not gonna give any Qlippoth suggestions because I wouldn't suggest starting there. I'm not gonna give Qlippoth suggestions because I would not suggest starting there. Where I would suggest starting is what I've been presenting, which is Kabbalah foundational principles. If I was the teacher of an astral internet mystery school, then what I would be teaching from is the mystical Kabbalah, Ladder of Lights, Practical Guide to Kabbalistic Symbolism, you know, all the books that I've mentioned on my channel. I suggest starting there. Qlippoth, that's more. In any case, I'm going to prepare for the work that I have to do. I just wanted to hop on, share that message with you guys, and I hope that it does serve to give you a little bit of confidence and a little bit of clarity, a lot of bit of clarity, honestly. Vincent Del Cristo says there is no need to be scared of the Qlippoth. You've been working with it your whole life. Being conscious of it is the game changer. Big facts, my friend. Big facts. Big facts. Love you guys. This is a lot of fun. And I'll be honest. The fact that I am privy to so much clarity and so many downloads is because I've taken upon the side project of also dispensing it to those of you who can receive it. So I have you to thank for that. I mean, I do a lot of work myself, but I get a bonus because there's people who actually listen to what I say. So I thank you for that. Rack bar. All right. So yeah, I think that's it. I think think that's it. I'll let you know. Currently, one of my studies is really trying to figure out the Goetia, and I don't just mean what's this demon do? Why are they given those descriptions? Why are they given those correspondences? What does it all mean? I'm getting pretty close. I'm figuring out that there's actually a connection with the tarot, and it's directly tying into what we've been studying. And when I say what we've been studying, I don't know what you've been studying, but I've started my study of the paths. Now, I know the spheres pretty decently, radically decently, if I must say so myself, but I never really studied the paths like this. So the study of the past has really taken my whole Kabbalah knowledge to the next level, because we learned about what the Sephiroth represent, but see, the paths are what connect the Sephiroth. These are the channels that life force flows through the map, and if done correctly, I'm starting to see that this can actually map and pinpoint the entire human existence and beyond. It's not just the human existence and beyond. Really exciting stuff. Samuel asks, are the book and cards plus greenery for yourself or for us? Why do you wear nothing but a black hoodie? I think that you're new to my channel, so my answer may not make sense to you, but all of these things create a perfect state for me to exist in. And when I'm in my most efficient state, I perform at my best. It's a bonus that you get to see it. Most people don't. I do what I do because it allows me to be the best. Like I said, you being able to see it is a bonus. Cosmic Flow, I don't know what you're talking about. When are we gonna again? What does that mean? Micah 3000 says, would you say Montrose listening and singing Saraswati 8, one you gave 1 month ago, is the best thing to do? Strengthen your wisdom and resolve. Yes. Yes. Keep doing that mantra. Angel Essence says black is a protective color. Oh yeah. I don't believe in enemies, so anything that I experience and encounter is mine. It's for my development, so I absorb it. Protective in that way. Many things get lost in the void, but the void is never lost. Unlimited power. Okie doke. That's that. Back to my Kabbalah studies. I hope you guys have a great day. You might see me tonight reading chapter 20 about Tifereth if I still have the energy to stay awake. I might be asleep, so I'm not going to make any promises, but I'm pretty sure we're going to read chapter 20 of Le Mystical Qabalah. Alright, that'd be around the usual time, which is like 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern. But if not, I'm going to go to sleep, but we're probably going to read it. Alright? Cosmic Flow says, do y'all believe in curses, or does the heart chakra have to be in the right place? That's what I'm saying, man. Like when you start working with these paths, you'll start to see that literally everything works together in harmony. Nothing's out of place. So to say a hex or a curse, that's just a word. There's not really such a thing. There's the flow. There's a flow of time and space. Things happen up, down, up, down. Some things may be unfortunate. Some things may be fortunate. But everything happens the way that it's supposed to. Now, whether one person may be a facilitator for that change, they're just an instrument, right? If somebody appears and you happen to do something to make them curse you, that was going to happen anyway. They just so happen to be the perfect vessel for that energy to flow through. That's why there's multiple humans on the earth, so that change can move across the board. That's why I say there are no enemies. Because nobody out here who sets their mind to be against me is in control of themselves. Nobody out here who sets their little mind to cause me harm is in control of themselves. But if you look at it from a limited perspective of, oh, they're trying to get me and we gotta fight back, you're also not controlling yourself. You're being controlled by your fear. And as somebody said last night, fear is the mind killer. Love, love, love says, what is playing in the background? A wonderful, wonderful conceptual album written by my Russian friend. If you check my Instagram, I posted it on my story. You can listen to it. I've been listening to this literally nonstop for the past like 3 days. I got the 10-hour version. Okay, all right. Gonna leave for real this time. Any other questions? Anything else that you must bring up right now before I go back into the void? Going once, going twice. Oh, that's the I get it. Well, that answers my question. All right, anything else? Supreme Laughter says, can you elaborate on Brahmacarya? So, Brahmacarya represents restraint and control over your sensory, the fulfillment of sensory desire. Because the thing is, you create resistance. Resistance creates a certain type of pressure that leads to growth. So if the animal body, which is completely under control of instinct, is constantly moving in a certain direction, let's say towards food or sex, it's operating on a certain autopilot. You're not in control of it. I mean, think about it. When hunger strikes or when horniness strikes, you're not in control of that. It rises up until you fulfill it. So Brahmacharya represents the practice of systematically harmonizing and balancing that urge. And it's not merely resistance, because it's not about fighting. It's about harmonizing it. In order to harmonize it, you have to understand it. You're supposed to eat. Your body is designed to have sex. So it's not that you are supposed to cut those things off. You're supposed to understand the origin of the hunger, the origin of the horniness. And once you understand the origin of those things, you can start to work with harmonizing it and neutralizing it. Because if it isn't harmonized and neutralized, you're going to be fighting. And if you're fighting it, you're not in control. You're not in control. So Brahmacharya doesn't just mean not fapping and orgasming. Brahmacharya means having a certain level of discipline over all the urges of the flesh. A discipline. Not cutting it off and running away from it, but a discipline. There's a time and a place for everything. Let me know if that answers your question. Other than that, I'm out. There's nobody else to ask anything else. Cosmic Flow says sugar and salt equals raging hormones, right? You know, and if you want some help with that, because there's a reason why I said food and sex, because I'm pretty sure you're talking about the sex aspect. If you put yourself on a sattvic diet, that's going to help to reduce those urges a lot. Look up a sattvic diet. Go to Google, type in SATTWIC diet, and start looking at those foods. Samael says, what is your opinion upon following the right path of the Kabbalah? Jesus looks left on the cross, but the right side has value. So, I would say that the correct path is understanding the entire tree to your best ability. And really the only path, the most efficient path, if the goal is Kether, is the middle path. And the middle path is balanced and influenced by the left hand and the right hand path. So it's not like you're just taking one path. If you find yourself polarized to one side or the other, there's going to be heavy resistance against the other two paths. So the middle path is going to be the most balanced because it's going to be counterweighted by both sides. So I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, right hand path, left hand path. You got to know it all. All right, good to go. Have a great day. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. I love you guys. Glad that you're here, and I'm glad that I'm here.